Thank you for being on time. Thank you for coming. Thank you for shelling out your $50 and supporting me and my family getting here. Much appreciated. And I'll do my very best to share as much as I can with you guys. This seminar, I do seminars all around the world, but if I can do a good one here in Canada, that means a lot to me. So I'm going to try and give you guys my very best, honest, open positions about the sport and how to get better at it. So that, you know, as Canadians, we keep kicking ass. Because, yeah, that makes me happy to see other Canadians winning and doing good. So I thought I'd kind of start off with a story about myself and the sport and how it's been in my life. Just so kind of gives you guys a point of reference. Maybe something you guys can identify with. So I started out as a kid, yeah, probably around your age. Loving art. Yeah, that's right. I'm looking right at you. I was just one of those super energetic kids. Love to fight. You know, love to smash shit and throw things around, and you know, not because I was a bad kid. Just had a lot of energy. And you know, my uncle would come over, and I'd be on his leg, just chewing on his leg. Just, you know, little fighter kid. And it was actually my grandmother. You guys probably know this story, but it was my grandmother first got me into arm wrestling. So no matter who you are, just know that you don't always know the impacts you have on a kid. You know, my grandmother started me, and here I am today. My grandmother used to reward me for doing chores. You know, if I did chores well, she would arm wrestle with me. And as a little 5-year-old kid, that was the best reward I could have. You know, the ability to go as hard as I could with my grandmother. There was something about the feeling of it that I really enjoyed. So this is my start, this is my base, this is really why I'm here in the first place, just to express, you know, that fight, right? So from there, you know, arm wrestling with my friends. We had a library. In my parents' library, there was a book, Pumping Iron. I remember, you know, again, around your age, young kid, probably 6 years old, 7 years old maybe. And my brother was like, look at this book. And opening up, flipping through the pages of Pumping Iron, there's Arnold, you know, and I was like, wow, I want to be strong like that. I want to be strong like that. And, you know, and I kind of dedicated my life, even from a young age, I'm like, every free bit of headspace I had, I was like, how do I get stronger? How do I get more like that? Arm wrestling at that point was something I loved to do, but really it was more about getting strong and growing muscle and, you know, just developing myself. All through public school. My favorite time was right before recess. We had a couple minutes sometimes. The teacher would leave and we'd get on the desks and we'd arm wrestle. And I was middle of the pack. I wasn't the best kid. I was about middle of the pack. I could beat about half the kids, but half the kids could beat me. But I loved it, and I looked forward to it so much, and I'd try and beat that guy who beat me. Loved doing it. God, I always asked my parents for a weight set. From the time I was a little kid, I'm like, all I wanted is a weight set. They would never give it to me. They said it would stunt my growth. It's total. Well, now we know that that's just completely false, right? There's been studies done. If you make a kid lift weights, they're actually going to be taller. So I remember always asking for a weight set. They wouldn't give me one, so I was in the woods, you know, working out with sticks and stuff. I was a young kid, but I knew that I had to do it. Finally, I think I was 13 or 14, and my parents got me a weight set, Walmart weight set. And me and my buddy Jamie lived across the island. Every night we were training. And I'll tell you, so from that age, from 13 or 14 years old, I haven't really taken a day off. Really haven't. Like maybe a day, like a couple days before competition, whatever. But I've never stopped. Okay, and that's one of the reasons I think it's very important. It's consistency in lifestyle. Consistency in lifestyle over the course of a lifetime is what really makes a big difference. You can't look at things like workouts and like periods. You have to think of it, so much of it as a lifestyle if you really want to go really far. So when I'm going to talk to you about my training, it's going to evolve more into lifestyle training. So high school, High school rolls around. It's where I met lovely Jody in the back there. Everybody say hi. Hi. It was in high school that I started to actually physically start to get somewhere. So in high school, I remember I kind of beat the biggest kid towards like probably grade 12. Beat the biggest kid in the high school, big hockey player, Reg. Anyways, I beat him and I was like, okay, now I'm starting to get good at this. There was a guy, Chris Cura. Chris Cura was the baddest dude in the whole county with the young kids. And I remember the night I beat him. And I was like, wow, this is almost bigger than when I beat John Brzezinski, honestly, when I look back. Like, it's a big deal, you know, like, so, you know, I remember these steps along the way, you know. At 19, so sorry, let me backtrack. I went out west, worked oil field. Huge step for me. Show up, it's all dudes from like 18 to 22 working in a shop. Hundreds of us, and we're all you know, uneducated, you know, Canadian young men out just to work, and so we all arm wrestled, all of us. We all arm. I don't think there was a non-arm wrestler among us. None of us knew what we were doing, but we'd all arm wrestle. We all knew who the best guy was. I managed to beat everybody in the shop, except for one, and that guy's name was Devon Larratt. He was about 165-pound Canadian Wolverine. Aaron Langell. Some people in the room might know Aaron Langell. Right? So Dion was Aaron's brother. Dion taught Aaron, okay? If you guys look back in like the history of arm wrestling, Aaron Langell made a movie, I think it was called The 51 Moves of Arm Wrestling. This is before the internet was even out. This was a VH tape that was like the most underground thing you could imagine, the 51 Moves of Arm Wrestling. And I remember I was over at Dion's, this is after I knew him for a bit, and he showed me, I'm like, what is this wizardry? What is this wizardry I'm watching? Anyway, so everybody at the shop was like, no matter, you beat somebody, they'd be like, yeah, but you can't beat Dion. Yeah, but you can't beat Dion. And I desperately wanted to beat Dion. So I followed him like a puppy everywhere he went. I ended up not even doing the job I was supposed to do. I was supposed to be sweeping the shop over in a completely different part of the establishment. And I would abandon my responsibilities, go and work in the welding shop where Dion worked. I would go purposefully and just hover around this dude and work around the shop so that any chance I had to potentially arm wrestle this dude or just to watch him, because the dude, I tell you, he moved like fire. Okay, never to this day have I seen somebody so metabolically active in my life. The guy moved about 3 or 4 times the speed of everybody else. And he had a reputation that he had beat up everybody in the shop, basically. So one day I got him after work. And I'm like, Dion, right now. And so he obliged me. And I couldn't believe it. At the time, I was probably like a 200-pound kid off the farm in phenomenal shape, lifting weights like a savage, fighting, playing sports, very focused, and he made me feel like a kid. Everybody who's been involved in the sport a little bit remembers when they first came to practice. You know, that feeling of helplessness and powerlessness that you get when you find an arm wrestler and you're like, what is going on here? I had that feeling with him, and it was so compelling. And I tried so hard to beat him. I tried so hard that I probably almost broke my arm, and he sensed it, and he let me have a match. Okay, I knew he let me have it. I knew that. Didn't stop me from the next day telling everybody in the shop that I beat him. Okay, 18 or 19 years old, and that of course came back to him. Anyways, somehow he got past that, and you know, after giving me a bit of a scolding, he decided to make I would be his kind of training dummy. Okay, he was getting ready for an event in Russia. He taught me the basics. He taught me the basics in the gym and on the table. He taught me, and I would argue with him. I'd say, this doesn't make any sense. And anyways, at this time, he basically told me to shut up and do what he was telling me to do. Probably about 3 months later, I went to the bar and old oil field guys were arm wrestling. It's completely different. I would cut through everybody like butter. I couldn't believe it. This top rope thing actually worked. I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I cannot believe how easy this is now. And at that point I was like, okay, a lot of things have changed. So that was, I was probably 18, 19. I went home from oil field and I went back to Picton. And I realized underneath my nose the entire time I was living in one of the meccas of arm wrestling. He's not here right now. Troy Eaton, okay, lives in Picton. Mike Gould lives in Picton. Big John lives in Picton. That's another guy who's beat John Brzenk. Anyways, it was incredible for me to come back home and find that arm wrestling was there the whole time. Troy and I started to take arm wrestling seriously, videotape, talk about it, learn technique. Attended my first nationals, 97 or so, I think it was 97, got third place. Internet started to pick up. Everything started to change. The way we spoke, everything, like the way people were learning changed around the turn of the millennia. The message boards, the ability to watch video. We were all so much dumber before the internet, right? Like now it's so easy. You want to know something, you're an expert because this has all the information on it. You still have to do the work, but at least it's there now. Before you had to find people, go, you know, it was very different. Military guy. When I joined the military, I had aspirations of potentially going to the Olympics for judo. So at this time in my life, early 20s, I was still multi-sport. I liked to do judo, I liked to play basketball, loved arm wrestling. When I got into the military, started off the reserves, then I switched to regular force. Right? My buddy Scott Drosy and I, it's so cool, we were on in battle school together. Okay, so we did our infantry battle school together. We went on to serve in the same regiment for a while. Arm wrestling fit really well in with my job, I found. Basketball, I had to have a million people to like come together and I had to organize everything. Even judo, even the fighting arts, you know, you needed to arrange it. Arm wrestling fit so easily. Like I was able to develop my arm wrestling with people, without people, it didn't matter. When I went further in the military, arm wrestling was kind of like my sanity in a lot of ways. I'd go away, I'd do tours, right? I served, I ended up getting to a place in the military, which I'm super proud that I got to be in. I was in the Special Forces for most of my career, but I never stopped arm wrestling throughout the whole period. You know, we'd go on tour the whole time. I knew I'd have a match when I came back, so I was training all the specifics, training every day. I think that arm wrestling kept me safe, kept me sane. As you know, when you're in stressful situations, you always turn to dark stuff normally. You know, whether it's drugs or alcohol or gambling. I've seen so many people fall off. Arm wrestling has kept me safe and healthy in a lot of dark periods. Yeah, and it was during this time period that I got to be the #1 in the world when I beat John Brzenk in 2008. Another interesting time because I kind of accomplished what I was after, right? So I hit that peak, I hit the spot that I was going for. And then I had to reevaluate why I was doing it in the first place because it was no longer to be the #1 guy in the world. I kind of got there, so now what do I do? Do I stay here and stay here as long as I can? At that point, it became apparent to me that things were different. Things were different. The climb is different. Once you kind of get to a place, you have to reevaluate why you do it. I've had a couple periods of reevaluation in my life. That was the first period. That was the first one. Anyways, so I carried on. Shortly thereafter, around 37 years old, I got surgeries. My right elbows were screwed. Okay, my entire life, I trained like a maniac, okay? Guys, I trained so hard. I really did. Like, I was training for hours and hours every day of my life. And I was training in ways that most people weren't willing to do, and most people should never do. And I would, if I saw people training the way I used to train, I would tell them, I'd tell them to stop. It's crazy. Exercise is an interesting thing. Exercise really ultimately is about stimulation. You want to stimulate yourself to get a certain bit better. But sometimes that stimulation comes with damage. You want to minimize the damage. Minimize the damage, optimize the stimulation. I did a lot of damage. I was doing exercises like I was dropping weights and catching them. I remember I was in my basement and we didn't have weights because I don't know, we didn't have it set up or anything. And a good friend of mine, we got a grill, a storm grate, okay? And we got a railroad tie, okay? And the exercise was, I would push the storm grate up as quick as I could, and on the way up, the guy would be over top of you with the railroad tie, and he would hit down as you were pushing up. So it was like, clang, clang, and I'm like, yeah. And we were like, good training. Yeah, good training for being an idiot, you know? Like, you know, and in a way it is good training, but at the same time, it's such a high cost. So at around 37, all this stuff was catching up with me, out of options. And I'm telling you guys, I'm a guy who really loves, despite what I look like, I do love health and fitness. I really love it, okay? And I've read and studied just about everything you can, and I've tried almost every system. Now, there comes a point when almost nothing works, and then you're forced to make decisions. That hard decision was surgery. I went into the doctor, and this doctor was the most, I would say, aggressive doctor that I could possibly find. He was the doctor that took care of the Special Forces guys, okay? So he was very much a fighting doctor. Like, he knew that he was getting us ready to go back out the door again. I think I went into my medical MIR in the military. I think I went in there on a Monday or Tuesday, and I said, I think it's time. I said, I can't feel my hand anymore. It's asleep all night. I said, it's inflamed, it's pain all the time. You know, I can't take steps forward anymore. I'm sliding. No matter what I do, I'm sliding. And this is me working my hardest not to slide, okay? So this is, I think, 2012-ish, 2012, 2013. And most doctors said, you're done. You got no cartilage. You got no cartilage in your elbow. You're done. Your elbow is just it's a disaster zone. There was so much bone and tissue that it was cutting off not only vein, okay, not only artery, not only blood supply, but nerve supply. So my hands were dead, and there was no blood going through to heal the tissues. Okay, so this is the state that I was in. He said you should really stop. He said, you're probably going to be done after this. He said, you might get another year or two. He said, you might get another year. Every time I win a match, I call him up and I thank him. Almost every time. Anyway, so he cleaned out my right. And one of the first mistakes I made when I got the surgery mentally was I thought that it would fix everything. Yeah, it's not how it works. Perfection is something that you need to throw out. You cannot ever think of perfection in your life or anything. Nothing will ever be perfect, and it's about accepting that and working from that position. So I thought, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let this heal, I'm gonna come back to the table, and it's gonna be good. And obviously it wasn't, right? So I did the rest, I did the rehab. I think within a few months I was back on the table, and I started to go straight. And I still remember looking across John, who had his comeback yesterday. So we're training together, and we're starting to power up, and click, 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 click. And I'm like, fuck, it's still there. Fuck, my joint's still like a ratchet. And just looking at him, and we're kind of like, fuck, Devon, it didn't work. So I had the surgery again to clean out more. Same joint, yeah. Had a second surgery. And it set me back far. So the first time they went in arthroscopic and they took out all sorts of stuff. They took out bones the size of golf balls. They took out over a cup of bone out of my right elbow the first time they went in. Okay, right away I had great, could move, blood flow right away, but the joint was so loose because all that bone was stabilizing it, right? I started to work right away. I was working, but there were problems. Had the second surgery, and my right arm just atrophied to almost nothing, like atrophied away. I still kept training throughout the entire process, but I realized, you know, you can't just be cutting open your body and thinking that's a good idea all the time. And you have to kind of accept where you're at and make the best decisions. So this was kind of rebirth for me, the surgery. It changed my style, it changed a lot of things. It was another one of those mental resets. Why are you doing this? Why are you here? WAL, Game of Arms. Game of Arms came out. I love arm wrestling so much, guys. I love arm wrestling. I love the community. I love the exhaust. I love being able to have it empty a piece of me, you know? Arm wrestling lets me get out some of my demons, I suppose. You know, the ability to fight in any way is an exhaust, and arm wrestling fills that role in my life quite well, a lot. So it was Game of Arms. I think it was 2014 or so, and I was like, man, we're gonna make it. I'm like, we are gonna make it. Like, arm wrestling is gonna get somewhere. And before that, before 2014, man, if you won $500, if you won $1,000, oh my God, this is incredible. Winning $1,000, you are the king of North America. $500, oh my God, what a great day. What an incredible day. I remember winning Gloucester Fair and getting $100 or $200 and thinking this is the coolest thing ever. Getting my gas money paid for, I got a little bit of food for doing something I love. 2014 Game of Arms, I'm like, we have an opportunity here. I'm like, this could start to go. And I wanted so badly to be in it. And we were getting ready to go back to Iraq. And they told us, they said, we want you to burn all of your leave. So military, you have a certain amount of leave. And sometimes if they know in the second half of the year, you're gonna be away a lot, they'll tell you at the beginning of the year, they'll say, burn all your leave. They'll say, go on vacation now. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I don't really wanna burn my leave. I'm like, pretty sure I'm gonna be busy with this Game of Arms thing. And became a bit of an issue. That became a bit of an issue. And arm wrestling started to become a point in my career that started to get me, it was a decision point. I loved arm wrestling. I loved being a soldier, okay? I absolutely loved being a fighter for Canada. I have so much pride in having done that. But I'll tell you, by the time it was around 2014, I'd done a fair amount of tours and I'd seen a lot, and as awesome as it was, there was a fair degree of murk that I was, aware of, and it was starting to become a bit gray for me, whereas arm wrestling was still very pure. The difference between war and the difference between sport. War is confusing, sport is it's pretty much just a big positive. I wanted to do Game of Arms. I got called into the office at my work, and they said you can't arm wrestle anymore. And I was like, yeah, I've been arm wrestling since I was 5 with my grandmother. You can't ask me not to arm wrestle anymore. I've been arm wrestling longer than I've been a soldier. And they're like, yeah, you can't arm wrestle anymore. I'm like, I'm here at work, I go home and I arm wrestle. And they're like, yeah, arm wrestling's getting too big. And at the time I was the world champion, or thereabouts. Yeah, thereabouts, because I'd won it with the left, so I was still kind of up there. They're like, yeah, you're gonna have to stop arm wrestling. I'm like, I'm never stopping arm wrestling. You guys can think about your policy. Anyways, this discussion led me to be forced into a year's leave without pay. Okay, very difficult choice. Very difficult. We weren't rich. We were not even a bit rich. We had mortgage payments. We had 3 kids, and that's tough, man. And you feel so selfish. Like, big part of you's like, I should just suck it up. I should go to work. I should leave arm wrestling. I should take care of my family. You know, but the more I thought about it, the more I knew that, you know, there's 7 billion of us on this planet, or so, maybe 8, I don't know. And I think it's very important that you do you, you know. You do what makes you happy in this life, and that will be your contribution. You start doing things for other people primarily, and I think just everything gets confused. You be you, and if it works out, it'll work out for all of us. I knew that I couldn't stop arm wrestling. I knew it was gonna work, and I knew also that whenever you do what you love in life, things are easy. Things are easy. If you do what you love to do, friction is less. There's less friction. So I made the very difficult call to take the year's leave, okay? No money. No money. Auden, Milo, and I, we used to take sacks, and we'd go to all the local apple trees, and we'd pick apples, okay? We'd dry them all day. That was the kids' lunches, dried apples, and sardines.
Could've left that.
Could have left that with the sardine part, just the apples. Yeah, it was an interesting time there for a while. We had no money. I got very lucky. I got a lot of people. I'm very lucky to have so many good people in my life, supportive people, people who have encouraged me to, you know, follow my dreams, even supported financially. You know, very lucky. We got some support that year. A friend of mine, good friend of mine now, said, Devon, if whatever you win, whatever money you win, I'll double it. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big deal, huge deal. So I was like, okay, but I still gotta win. If I don't win, there's gonna be a problem. There's gonna be a big problem. So that was 2014, 2015, first season of WL, right? So that's the even crazier thing. So I did take the year's leave without pay. We get like 3 seasons, so three episodes into Game of Arms, and they cancel it. They cancel it. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I took a year's leave without pay, and now the show is canceled. I'm like, I'm so screwed. But luckily, WL came along, and they were offering big prize money. And I'm like, okay. So my training got really serious, guys. I always loved arm wrestling. Like I've tried to explain to you guys, I've always loved it. From the time I was a kid, got more serious, right? Because at this point, it wasn't just about me. It was about, I needed to win to feed my family, actually. If I did not win, my kids, it was gonna be worse. It was gonna be harder. My workouts at that time shifted, okay? So I used to do hundreds of exercises, guys, hundreds for every position on the table. Okay, I'm very obsessive about arm wrestling. I've thought a lot about arm wrestling. Before I go to bed at night, I used to dream about arm wrestling. I used to think about positions and the different pressures and how they related and what that meant, the way you had to train was. Hundreds of exercises, guys. I had sheets in my basement all around the borders of the walls. This exercise, this weight, this exercise, this weight, all these movements, all these tools. And what I started to realize when it became more important was not everything is of equal value. Some things you can't focus on. There are things that are much more important than others. This was the first time in the sport that it condensed for me. Okay, so what that means is I took it from all these exercises and I condensed. This was my first condensation. And I took it down to one thing. And we all know fitness, health, how everyone's preached balance, right? Everyone has preached balance in the fitness and health community. I'll tell you that I have gone way off that path, way off the balance path with great success. The balance theory that's out there, that's promoted to people, I'd say is not completely accurate. Okay, not completely accurate. I was doing cupping. I did cupping for about 4 months, and I was training like 4, or at that point 5 workouts a day for like 45 minutes, an hour. I would train cupping every day, all day, eat some apples and sardines, and then go right back at it, you know? Worked well, okay? We got by. I got back into the forces after my year's leave, expecting things to be different. I go see the sergeant major. I said, okay, buddy, how you been? Good year. Am I back in my old job? And they're like, are you ready to stop arm wrestling? I'm like, God damn. God damn. I'm like, okay. And so what they did instead is they put me in recruiting. Okay, they put me in recruiting for my last year of my career. Okay, so I did my final year as a recruiter for the Special Forces. It's not why I joined. I did not join the Army to be a recruiter. The only one reason why I joined. And so I knew at that point, I was like, okay, I'm gonna finish my contract and that'll be it. So 2016, 17, out of the forces, full-time arm wrestler. Okay, so I'm now a full-time arm wrestler. And that kind of takes me to now. And the things that have changed, the things that I've evolved into over the last 5 years is lifestyle. I'm now a lifestyle arm wrestler. I'm not training for this or that. It's my lifestyle. All day, every day, it's arm wrestling for me. It's become very simple. It's become very intertwined. Yeah, so this is where I am, okay? I kind of wanted to give you kind of an overview of arm wrestling in my life before we kind of broke into where I've gotten to in the training. Does anybody have any questions before we kind of go further?
You're doing good.
Yeah, good times?
Good.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, guys.
What canceled the Game of Arms? I just found out about that show like a couple months ago. I love it. The final of the first season there, Chafee and Beijing.
Yeah.
39 matches or 36
Yeah.
matches.
Yeah.
So what canceled that?
I don't know what canceled it.
AMC dropped all of their reality television programming except for the Talking Dead, which is the composition of The Walking Dead. So they just decided to change their network parameters, and that was it. So they dropped all reality television programming. So it's still owned by them, and it sits on the shelf.
Oh, so it can't be
No, until they decide, if ever, to release it, they own the rights to it, and it just sits in a dungeon somewhere.
But I'll tell you, it was great, man. It was a cool show, and
Fantastic.
it was a lot of fun. And I'll tell you, that second series was gonna be wild. The first one, we got in a fight. The first show, it was so crazy. So Travis Bajan and his team was coming into California. I had Tom Nelson on my team, and Tom hates Travis. And it's not a fake hate. It's quite a real hate. And me, I'm just joking around about everything. But they were filming it, and they're like, yeah, talk about Travis, guys, talk about Travis. So we'd be like hitting golf balls, be like, this is Travis's head, boom. And like, whatever, we were like, all week we're insinuating that we were gonna beat him up. And I didn't even realize it at the time. And then Travis shows up, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I'm in a match with him anyways, long story short. He pins me, he pins me. This is right after my surgery. And Tom Nelson comes over and he's yelling in his face. And Travis flicks him. He flicks him right in the nose. And that's it. That's it. And we're surrounded by bikers, Nelsons, people in the California Armbenders. It's in a chop shop. They're cutting up cars. and Travis knew. And Travis' eyes, Tom's coming at him. Tom has a brother who fights professional. Fights in the UFC. And Kelly Nelson is a complete crazy lunatic woman. Okay, she's throwing water bottles at Travis as he's running away. Scott Nelson ends up catching up with Travis and gets him in a full Nelson. And the bikers are like beating him up and punching him. It's like things are falling over, things are on fire. And everything's being recorded. I'm like, man, this series is gonna be a hit. I'm never gonna have to work another day in my life. Anyways.
It's knocked over while recording.
Anyways, so that's actually where Can't Beat 'Em Choke 'Em came from, because after I still had to arm wrestle more, and he was way weaker, right? So that's where, I don't know if you guys follow the message boards, Can't Beat 'Em Choke 'Em. That's where that comes from, because I couldn't beat him, then Tom choked him out, and it was way easier, way easier.
I think the show was too early. That came now
Yeah.
after COVID, like
Yeah.
all the bigger leagues and yourself
Yeah.
had nothing to do, and now there's such
Yeah,
big audience.
we're ready now.
I think right now we're ready.
Oh, yeah.
We just need a new name.
Yeah. Believe me, guys, there's so much stuff in the works. By this September, there's gonna be a lot of things happening. Yeah, a lot of pieces are coming together for another big promotion like that.
WAL will ever come back?
WAL is working very hard behind the scenes still, believe it or not. Steve Kaplan does pitches all the time. His big pitch that he was just working on, I'm probably not supposed to talk about any of this stuff, so Steve, I'm sorry. But his last pitch actually just fell through at the very end, but I also know that as soon as it fell through that he's trying other things still. So the WL brand is very strong, and if Steve comes back, guaranteed it'll be something worth jumping into, but I won't be surprised if the next step comes from elsewhere. I will not be surprised at this point because there's just so many people invested. Yeah, Game of Arms, that was a very, very fun time. Any other questions?
You said you had surgery on your right arm.
Yeah, and then a left as well.
And the left. Now I see you guys are doing stem cells.
Yes.
Which one's more beneficial that you feel?
Oh my God. Okay, so we've opened the stem cell thing already. Okay, so first I'd say that I've been I care so much about sports and performance, really do. I started to hear about stem cells probably like 15 years ago, maybe, long time ago, maybe even longer. Started to hear about stem cells. Interesting, super interesting. I knew it was a ton of money. Interesting. Some of my soldier buddies who got badly injured, they were like, it wasn't covered in Canada, right? So they were like, fuck it. Went to clinics, got it done. Incredible results. I knew guys even very early having incredible results. Talked to a lot of people in the arm wrestling community about it. Like there's arm wrestlers who've been working with stem cells for a while. I'm not the first. And they were heavily encouraging me, even years ago. They're like, Devon, you gotta get on this stem cell thing, you gotta try it. But I never really, I knew how much money it was, and the state of me, I was like, When Levon tore me, oh yeah, and I'm gonna come back to that match before we go further. When Levon tore me, I thought, okay, now's the time for stem cells. So I paid, I went to Mexico, I paid, and I saw everybody at the clinic. I saw the results, and And then afterwards, what I went on to do after I had stem cells, I knew I wouldn't have been able to do that. I wouldn't have been able to do what I did without it.
That fast, you knew.
It wasn't just that fast, it's like it really started changing. Like I went after that, so I was doing these seminars, I was traveling around Europe. I had like a 2-week period when I was arm wrestling every single day with like world level dudes. And for like hours, for like 6 hours sometimes. One of the seminars I went like 11 hours. There were like hundreds of people. And I was like, I shouldn't be able to survive this. I should not be able to, but I did, and I did, and I did. And I had to think it was the stem cells. I had to think that there was something going on. That was my first experience with stem cells. Okay, after that, I became very kind of obsessed with them. Everybody I could talk to about them, I was talking about them. I was trying to understand them more. There's a lot to know about. It's like saying car when you say stem cell. It's way more complicated.
Did you try PRP or anything
Yeah,
like that?
I've done
first?
PRP.
Before the stem cells?
Before the stems.
Yeah.
Yeah. PRP's great. Yeah,
Did
it's
that
good.
help you?
What's that?
Did PRP actually help you?
Yeah, PRP can help. But let me tell you.
Not like stem cells.
No. Stem cells and exosomes are completely different. It's on a different level of regeneration, for sure. And it's expensive. It's expensive. Like there's a reason why it's expensive, unfortunately. Anyway, so then I got affiliated with VitaCell, and they're my sponsor. They take care of me, but they give me good deals. So, but yeah, the speed at which these things work and they can heal you, and it should be evident, guys. I mean, anybody who follows my career and sees the way I arm wrestle now, even compared to how I arm wrestled a year and a half ago,
There's no comparison, no.
I'm a different dude. I'm a different dude.
Even in your makeup.
Yeah, no, it's different. It's different, right? The health that I feel, I don't feel pain. It shouldn't be like this. My hand, I remember before Prudnik, my hand was really beat up, and I'm like, when my hand is like this, normally it takes me months. It normally takes me like 3 or 4 months minimum when my hand, I sometimes really damage myself. That was the first time I worked with VitaCell. 2 weeks and I think 3 days before the match, they shot me up. They shot it in my thumb. They shot it in my wrist. They shot it in my knuckles, and they shot it in my bicep and my elbow. And by the time the match came around, I had no pain.
Do you feel it? Like,
Yeah.
of course, cortisone shots my knees.
Yeah.
Do you feel it? Like, do you feel pressure a little bit?
Pressure?
Yeah.
The volume isn't really high. Okay, you're looking at 2 mils. It's like a typical injection is 2 mil. So I mean, yeah, you can feel some pressure. If they're putting it into a small joint, you'll feel pressure, but it'll go away shortly. Yeah.
Is there any type of injury that stem cells don't work on?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. Yeah. Well, look at that. The only thing I'll tell you, man, unfortunately, at this time in our history, they're still expensive. Probably in like 10 or 15 years, I'm becoming more aware of the business side of things and the regulations and why it's so much. There will come a time when they become more cheap. There
I
will.
was wondering, 'cause I have a third degree,
Yeah, I
6th
see,
degree
buddy.
burns to
Yeah.
60% of my body. I've had like well over 30 major
Yeah.
surgeries. I've been in complete rebuild.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if,
Yeah.
if it's beneficial or if I just
Oh,
say
that's-
screw it, because I've been through it already.
Yeah.
Because I'd go for anything.
I would say yes. It's a matter of cost. That's all I'd say. But yes, I mean, if you can afford it, it works.
What type of cost?
And can you get like an IV drip too?
Yeah, you
also?
can.
Yeah.
Mhm.
With
And look,
autologous.
I'd encourage you to shop around and to understand all about stem cells.
Me and my wife started, like, she's got a couple of injuries,
Yeah.
a rotator cuff.
Right.
and I've got one of my
Yeah.
different, but we were looking at PRP first.
Yeah, PRP.
Especially for around
Yeah,
here.
that's good. Like
Yeah.
that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of pieces to it all. When it comes to the stem cell piece, so when you say stem cells potentially can be a part of a cocktail. Okay, like the premium product when it comes to regenerative medicine, in my opinion. Okay, and I'm just a fucking arm wrestler who is infatuated with performance.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like the best product for regeneration is something called Wharton's jelly. Okay, and Wharton's jelly, what they do is they take an umbilical cord, okay, and they take it from a selected C-section mother, and they'll basically extract the lining, the jelly from the umbilical cord. They process it, and this is a stem cell product. Tons of stem cells in there, but by no means is that the only thing that's going on. Okay, there's all sorts of healing compounds, which I wouldn't feel right even talking about, but basically it's baby grower.
Yeah.
Okay, like, and this, when put into the body, has incredible effect. Incredible effect. A lot of times, what they'll do in Mexico, or sorry, not Mexico, anywhere south of the border, is kind of the alternative. And it's too much to get into, like in this form, really.
Yeah.
But they're going to culture the cells. Okay, so they're going to get those stem cells from that source potentially. They're going to culture them and make the density just insane. So when you talk about Wharton's jelly, you're going to have actually a low number of stem cells comparatively. And they're not even legally allowed to tell you how many cells you're getting in the States. They're not even legally allowed. No, but if you go to south of the border, they deal with numbers. They'll say this is, 30 million, 100 million. This is 300 million stem cells you're getting, and it'll be a cultured stem cell product that's basically straight stem cells. But they might, like clones, right? A clone is not always as strong as the mother. Right, anyways, stem cells are fascinating, guys. They're a big reason why I'm doing as well as I am right now. There's no question in my mind. So much so that, my daughter and I are having a discussion last night. We're talking about being a doctor, and I'm like, and the same thing with my son, Auden. I encourage them. I'm like, you want to know what's an interesting field? Regenerative medicine.
Yeah.
Take a look at that stuff, guys. Like, because in 15, 20 years, medicine's not going to look the same. It's not. They're going to have this stuff figured out way more. It's going to be more affordable. The thing that's really wild about it also, we're just starting to crack it. Right now it's being used for, injuries, healing. There's a good chance that it's going to change to like enhancing. So like if you have the money and you can invest even into a kid, okay, that kid is going to turn into something greater, right? More cells, more stem cells. It's fascinating stuff. Anyways, I want to get back to something that I kind of left out that's very important when you're knowing me, and it was with Levon. Okay, so I created. So when I was in the wars, I created kind of an alternate personality. Okay, I am me. This is basically who I am as a person. I feel normal right now. But when you go to war and you fight in a really crazy environment, sometimes what you realize is who you are is insufficient for the task. Okay, so you can create. This is very common, guys. You create kind of like a switch or an alternate persona. And that's one of the things I did when I was serving. I had an alternate persona for when I operated, okay? And it's not like his name was Fred or anything, but I would change my characteristics. I would become more, yeah, you create a monster. Yeah, you do, right? You create something that's ideal for fighting, something more vicious, something that doesn't care, Anyway, so I made this thing. And I used it, and I'd turn it off when I came back into camp. I had it, right, lived there. And I used it when I arm wrestled too. Like I would kind of make that switch, that mental switch, and kind of go into that place because I felt it was a more powerful mindset to achieve victory. Levon killed that guy. Killed him, right? So I remember round 2 when I faced Devon, and he ripped my arm open. Okay, ripped it. And I remember, that night and the days that followed, just the feeling of just death, like the ego death that took place. That guy who I had made to become invincible, that was made to go and fight, who got torn apart, to a certain degree got killed by Levon. I told myself after the match in the following weeks that the key to my healing would be to do what I wanted to do, to put no pressure on myself, and just do things that I like to do. This would be important for my healing. And the interesting thing is, within 8 days after the tear, I found myself at the club, where I stayed every day for weeks. I'd go to the club every day, no pressure. I didn't have any match booked, there's nothing. That's what I like to do. I was like, oh, what do I want to do today? I'd like to go arm wrestle with the guys. And they healed me, okay? They healed my arm. But it was refreshing to me to know that once I gave myself the freedom to do anything that I chose, that I came back to the same place, and that to me was really important. I wasn't doing it for any other reason than the love of the sport. And I still would do it today. Like, I always ask myself, if I've got no pressure, no nothing, what do I want to do today? And if it's the same thing you're already doing, then you're in the right place. Anyways, so.
Did the guys, like, when you went back to the club, did they heal you mentally too, you know what I mean, after that tear? Like,
Yeah.
you just felt better, like you said, no pressure?
Yeah,
hanging out with
the
guys,
mental thing
club?
probably wasn't apparent to them. It probably wasn't.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, the mental thing. Like,
There's one thing to have that injury, but the mental
yeah,
part behind that?
yes, yeah. The mental part behind that's very interesting. And to me, it's kind of like, you don't have quite enough antibiotics, and somebody caught some gonorrhea, and it comes back super gonorrhea. So I feel like my ego, in a way, got killed by Levon, but not fully killed. And over the course of the last year, it's come back in an even more vicious way. And it's important to understand ego. Ego is very important when it comes to sports and performance. You have to believe in yourself. You got to, if you want to achieve anything in the sport, you have to think of yourself as a champion. You have to. And it's very important to culture it, to let yourself think that way. Anyways, okay. Any more questions?
How are you preparing yourself for Levon again? You haven't shut that down.
That's a very good question.
You haven't shut that down because you're a fighter. So where are you going now?
So for me, it's very much the acceptance that I'm not going to stop. Okay, first I have to accept that I'm not going to stop. Okay, so it's a long look. You have to look long. You cannot think of things as a short thing. You have to know where to prioritize your energy. You have to have a long vision. Levon is a titan, guys. He is, in my opinion, the greatest thing the sport has ever produced. He is the strongest, best arm wrestler by a margin. Okay. He is the best by a bit. Now listen, when they broke the 4-minute mile, within a few weeks, I think it was broke by like 5 guys, okay? Levon is being chased. There will be more. There will be ones that follow him that will surpass what even he does. But right now, Levon is the king. Me, the lessons that I continue to take are simplicity and consistency. Simplicity, and passion. And these things will be the key components to beat Levon. Simplicity. You win in arm wrestling through accuracy, simplicity of ideas. Whoever has the cleaner idea will have the better technique. Okay, and there's not a lot of good ideas in arm wrestling, guys. There's maybe two. Okay, and then there's a lot of fallout from it. But when you talk about arm wrestling technique, there's probably two good ones, and then there's a flow in between those. Maybe there's three. Simplicity, consistency, okay, and passion. When you have passion, consistency becomes easy. I'll arm wrestle every day. Good luck keeping up, Levon. Like, if he's doing it for the wrong reasons, I will pass him. I will. Like, even though I'm 48 and he's like 30 something, like, I still won't stop. I'll do it every day. We'll see. Yeah, I'm thinking long. Look, there's a lot of guys before him, and I might not be able to do it anymore. I really might not. At 48, you know, can I continue to get better? I mean, this has been a really good year, but I mean, who knows? It's very hard to predict what people
How
get.
has Hermes changed your thinking of Levon?
Hermes is incredible. Yeah, right? So that's the thing. There's a lot of great athletes in the hunt. Hermes, Morozov. I have a rematch with Gennady. But there will be new ones. There will be new ones that come in. There will be giants, right? There will be guys coming into sport, 6'8", 6'9", 7 foot, you know, young guys who haven't chosen a sport yet, who choose arm wrestling, and they become just a completely different level.
I had a question for you, it's kind of the alter ego thing. Your last match with Gennady, you haven't followed me for years, but it's the first time I saw you, when you called him a dog. Where did that come from? And afterwards, like, you regret saying things like that, or are you guys both kind of aware that that kind of stuff is gonna come out, and afterwards you're gonna respect it no matter what?
Yeah.
Because I was even shocked at that comment.
Right, I know. I definitely say a lot of things that people think I should probably regret. I know. A lot of people are like, Devon, you owe him an apology for calling him a dog, and this is good friends of mine, and you know.
But you're a warrior.
I feel like it's your responsibility to break your opponent. It's your job. Okay, I want to be broken. Okay, that's why I'm going into the fight. Okay, I feel like to be soft to your opponent in any way is disrespectful. It's disgusting. It's not why we're here. Like, on the competition table, okay, you destroy your opponent. You destroy them. You obliterate them, and this is a sign of respect. And it's a sign of respect to this arena that we have. Look at, I call him a dog, whatever. Like, it's not actually hurting him. I'm not taking his money. I'm not beating up his kids. Like, I'm calling him a dog. You know, to me, what happens after you consent to a fight is much different than what happens in your day-to-day life. I think that there's a line that gets drawn, an agreement to step into the ring with your opponent, and I believe that you're supposed to call each other dogs. I think it's the right thing to do. Yeah, because at the base of it, this is a very simple thing. It's about establishing dominance. It's about testing theories. It's about trying to learn from each other.
I'm a dog person, and I find it more offensive than the pussycat dog.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I know, you know, just from dealing with people in that part of the world, that being called a dog or anything, you know, around dogs is considered extremely offensive. And I knew that. You know, listen, I can be a terrible person. You know.
It's all
I think that I do appreciate it. I think that this is good. When I look back and evaluate myself on it, I'm proud of those actions, and I know that might seem really weird, but I know that when I look at everything, it probably makes him grow. Like, to give him that conflict, to give him that fight, to give him that anger or whatever he's gonna feel when I call him a dog in this arena is probably gonna be something that afterwards he's gonna take from.
Character building exercise.
Yeah, in a way, it's a bit of a gift. Like, my hardest matches, my most brutal defeats have been my greatest lessons in life, whether they're on the arm wrestling table or off. You know, the biggest loss, and the thing is, the arm wrestling table is very safe. Really, I mean, safe. I mean, and when you can really teach somebody a lesson, when you can really humble them, you're giving them a gift, right? Like, when it's your job as a competitor to teach those lesser than you by defeating them, you know? And the more thorough your defeat can be of them, the greater their lesson will be. So, yeah, that's why I do it. I do it as a gift.
Most generous guy.
Yeah, and people respond well. You know, people are drawn to it, whether they love it or they hate it.
Way more, it's way more eyes.
Way more.
Way more, even if it's hate or if it's good.
It's a story, right? It's a story. Coliseum, right? Right, right. It's like it's that trying to make it bigger, trying to make the fight bigger. Yeah. Wait till we see each other again. It's gonna be.
I can't wait.
It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy.
Who's your biggest threat back to Levon, you think, right now?
Hermes, Vitaly.
Yeah.
Those two guys. Hermes is just super strong. I mean, Hermes is a lifetime arm wrestler. I mean, his dad was a champion, right? So he's grown up in the sport. Okay, he's incredible. The dude is a world champion. All quality, my friend. All quality. Right? He's incredible. Hermes Gasparini. Is he today number 1? Is he number 2? Is he number 3? I wouldn't go any lower than that. Yeah, incredible arm wrestler. So he's young, so he's going to be there for a while. Vitaly Larratt. Vitaly, in my opinion, super dangerous. Morozov, yes, but more so Vitaly. Yeah, in my opinion, Morozov's incredible. Terminator.
One day.
Yeah, and not even one day. Like, it's already a super bad dude right now.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, Vitaly, to me, is more fearsome.
Stylistic or
His build is
anthropometry or whatever.
He's been is a guy who's like, you can find pictures of Vitaly when he's like 10 years old holding arm wrestling medals. Okay, so this is a giant who learned to arm wrestle when he was a baby. And now he's like, I don't know if he's 6'9", okay? And when you see pictures of him, you think, oh, there's a tall, skinny arm wrestler. And then you get close to him, and he's huge. He's huge. He's so... Right.
On TV.
Right.
But when you're standing next to all these other guys, you just
Yeah.
think that too, but then in person.
Right. So Vitaly is like even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About him.
Vitaly's even more.
What about Dennis?
Dennis, yeah. Dennis. But Dennis is interesting because Dennis cannot live there. Okay? Dennis will make appearances. And yes, Dennis can put it all together. And Dennis, I believe, can definitely be the number 2 in the world. Can be it on a day when he's
Twice a year.
When it's all timed out.
Yeah, but I don't think he can live there. I don't think he can live there. But yeah, Dennis for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Bad dude.
What if Amgabaya puts on some weight?
You know what? I would hate to see him do that.
I know, right?
I would. He's like such a beautiful dude in the sport, and I think that one of the keys with us really moving forward is to start to place a lot of value in the weight classes. You know, I think that the sport is going to continue to develop and do really good when we can say, at 105 kilo, this guy is unbeatable. Bring us your guys, because I think that there's no better arm wrestler in the world than Kurdigali Amgabaya. He's the very best. You watch him, like, that is he's a Jedi. He's like 3 seconds in the future all the time. Best arm wrestler. Yeah, I wouldn't want to see him get heavy. Wouldn't want it.
I think there's a point now where there's room for more weight classes, like 242, 272, 308 plus.
For sure, and kind of follow the powerlifting thing. I mean, so we've got the 253 now, which is pretty well established, 115 kilo. And, you know, do we need one more? Not today yet, I don't think. Maybe in the future, depending on how the sport continues to grow.
The gap between 252 and 273, though, that's a huge gap, but like.
Well, you're still there basically. At 273,
Yeah,
you're still 250.
That's what I'm saying, when I first started, it was like 202 and up,
Yeah,
and that was it.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah,
That made no
crazy.
sense, but at the same time, there were 6 guys in 202 plus.
right. I think when it comes to the designing of weight classes, you want to make it that you can't win the next one up, ideally.
Right, yeah.
Right,
That's the idea.
right. So at 253, you probably can't win. It's starting to get close, you know. But if you were to make a 280 or a 290, that means you're actually 320 cutting.
It could be.
I mean, at that point, like, are we there yet? I don't know.
You said Vitaly's up there, top 3 biggest threats.
Yeah.
You just crushed Dave Chafee 6-0.
Yeah.
He had a war.
Very different opponents.
So I understand.
Very,
stylistically,
very
but I'm
different.
curious if you think maybe development of the time they pulled were different now. Dave's maybe a little bit lower than he was, and Vitaly's only getting better. I don't know. I'm just curious.
Very different opponents for one. Very different threats. I'd love to pull Vitaly. I'm sure it's going to happen probably within the next year. I'd be shocked if it doesn't happen. Dave, everybody has strengths and weaknesses. The more you can know your opponent, the better you'll be. I have a certain set of skills. Dave has a certain set of skills. It just so happened that I was able to piss Dave off a lot. You know? I was really able to piss him off. And because I pissed him off so much, a lot of people don't realize what really happened in that match. They see the match and they don't really get what happened. Even a trained eye, it's very hard to understand what happened. So for one, the strength gap got closed quite a bit. But the biggest thing that happened in that match was he was so angry at me, okay, leading up. And he did his best to kind of contain it, but the truth is there was a lot of underlying tension. And he was done. He was done being ridiculed. He was done being made fun of. So when it came to table, if I even started to provoke him mentally, he was willing to fight me, okay? And when I mean fight, I mean exert energy, okay? He was done being made look like he was not willing to fight. He was done. So when we were coming together, the second we shook hands, we were probably under 50% load. Okay, so the entire time you see us together, we're at like 50%. The camera doesn't see it. You can't see it. It's not perceivable. A lot of times when you come together, it's neutral, everything's calm, there's no pressure. Okay, I'm at 50% with him the entire time.
You're talking about like the interview the day before?
No. I'm talking about when they call their names out, you know, we're coming at the table, we're up at the table, Bill Collins is talking to us, Bill's putting the straps on. It still takes him about probably a minute and 20 seconds from the time our hands come together till that strap's getting cinched down. So that's about a minute and 15 seconds or so. Every time he starts to let off the pressure, I start to tell him he's a whiny punk or something. And he's right back in there. He's right back in there. So if there's one thing I have over Dave Chafee, it's endurance, okay? So he's loading with me for a minute and 20 seconds at 50% before they even say go. No, it's done. It's done. The match was over before they even said go. He loaded with me for a minute and 15 seconds in a poor position. So it was finished. It was finished. And it's because I made him so mad that he was willing to fight and he was done. He was done being called names. He was done being called stupid. And yeah, it's funny how you can kind of sometimes make that work a bit for you. Vitaly's different. It's tough for me to fuck with people who don't understand English so well. You know, but
your stories work though.
yeah, a little bit.
Get the Google Translate going.
Yeah, I'm sure. Look, with Dennis it'll be very easy if I want to. With Dennis it'll be easy. I don't think I want to though. We'll see. But yeah.
So you said you had all your training techniques and you had it written all around your basement.
Yeah.
And you really, a few years back, you really changed the simplicity.
Right.
You said you changed it to 1 or 2.
Yes.
2 trainings. So what did you consolidate all that to?
Okay, so how has my training come along since then, basically? Okay, so I went down all the way to cup. The first time I cut, it was just cup. The first time. That was 2014. It was cup. cup. I cupped and cupped and cupped. And then afterwards, after I got done, that big cutting, I was like, okay, that was actually worked very well. I was really surprised. I gave myself high marks. I was like, I think I probably did better in this period than I do in most periods with all that extra focus just on cup. I didn't get injured. I thought I'd become imbalanced. I thought I'd become overtrained. None of these things happened. My cup got really, really good. But I was like, yeah, it's probably not just cup. It's probably rise, cup, roll. So I went to 3 and played with that for a while. I sometimes added supination. High cup, low cup. Basically, at that point, I think the highest I ever got was 7 working exercises. 7 functional different exercises. So I would always, so basically when I became a real, I'd say, professional arm wrestler, so when I really started to really care, rising every day, pronation, cupping, high and low, slight differences. You can do straight cup, but sometimes you divide it into high and low cup. Supination and grip. Okay, so 5 that are consistently always there. Now, I did boil it down again. So I was working with around 5 for probably a good 6 years or so, probably 6 or 7 years. Okay, this was the base of pretty much everything I did. And then Levon. After Levon was an incredible lesson. Like, I put so much into the preparation for Levon. I put so much of my mind into the study, into the reflection about, but every time you shrink, it's like you see the destination a little bit more clearly.